Welcome to the Home and Family Culture Podcast, a family inspiration podcast where I discuss how the attitudes, habits, traditions, roles, and expectations in our homes influence the hearts, minds, spirits, and bodies of our children and the nation. I'm Jody Chafee, and in this episode, I interviewed Emily Dyke, the founder of Math Inspirations. Math Inspirations exists to teach students and parents to take ownership of their math experience and empower them with a system to make their efforts fruitful. I had an awesome conversation with Emily, and I hope that you enjoy.
To get started, just tell us a little bit about you and how you got started with Math Inspirations.
Yeah, so I'm Emily Dyke, and I started Math Inspirations about 3 years ago, and kind of the journey that led me to helping families with their homeschooling is that I was raised in a home with a mother who absolutely had a passion for learning. And so our family culture growing up was my mom leading by example and just being so curious about everything. Everything that we saw, she would say, "Oh, come look. Oh, come look." Like that was her most common phrase was, "Oh, come look at this. Like, look how cool this is. Why do you think that is?" I mean, it was just a part of our day to day was discovering something new, just because of the curiosity and the love of learning that my mom had. And obviously in school, we would come back and we would report what we learned, and she would say, "Oh, well, why do you think that is?" And then she'd expand us and help us think in a deeper way and just ask us lots of questions that we, when you're 6th grade, 7th grade, you just don't think beyond what you're told.
Yeah.
But she kind of forced us to think beyond what we were told because she was genuinely curious about it. And so it wasn't forced. It wasn't faked. And if it was, she was really good at it. We thought she genuinely wants to know more about this. And so we would sit and we would talk and we would think about it. And that was just the norm in our home. It's just the way that we were. And when I went and taught in a public school, I realized that that wasn't happening in everyone's home. Right. That was a rare thing, a rare gift that I was given. Because students, when I would approach them with that same kind of genuine enthusiasm where I'm like, "Oh, so tell me more about this," they go, "I don't know. I don't care." Where they really they didn't know how to respond to it. They didn't care about it. And I thought at first it was just the generation, it's just technology. But really I realized that it was just the culture in their homes was just not conducive to that. They weren't used to it. They never were expected to. Yep. And so I realized that as much as I could do, it would never be enough, because me being in their lives for an hour every day was not enough to change the impact that their home had in their lives every day. And it shouldn't. Yeah. It shouldn't. Yeah. But that's why I felt so strongly about working with homeschooling families. And I was given the opportunity by my sister-in-law who homeschooled and asked me to help her kids with math. And it was neat because we lived 2 doors down from each other. And so our lives were very much intertwined, and our cultures, because we were so intertwined, really meshed together. We had very similar philosophies. If it was different, I don't think we would have gotten along so well. Right. It would have. But there was very much that same just curiosity and wanting our kids not to learn because they're forced to learn, but to learn because they want to learn. Yeah. If they weren't wanting to learn, then we were doing something wrong. And so with my nieces and nephews, it was very much like, well, why is it? And if they say, "I don't know," then we'd say, "Well, let's figure it out because it's awesome and we want to know." And so they go, "Oh, we do? We want to know? All right, well, let's know." Because I think kids, more than anything, learn by example. And so if they think, "Oh, the norm is that people are curious about things," then they're more likely to feed that curiosity that they already have. Because kids are curious
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
But that gets kind of squashed because in schools and in different homes, they aren't encouraged to be curious. In fact, often curiosity leads to trouble. And so that can kind of get turned off instead of rewarded, which I think it should.
Yeah.
Because that's how you learn to love learning, is by being curious.
Totally.
That kind of spurs the whole idea of discovery. And so, and that's what we do, is we want kids to be curious. Well, how would you add bigger numbers? Let's figure it out, right?
Yeah.
Where they're the ones being excited to learn and to discover and figure things out on their own. So that's how we started. Our journey is by just allowing my nieces and nephews to figure things out and to be excited and to try to find their own way of doing things. And then, like in every homeschooling community, once one person does something really cool, then everyone else wants to do it.
Uh-huh.
So we started teaching families, and I realized that my influence was limited by my time. Like I just couldn't be in everybody's home all at once. And that's when we started to teach parents, because I know that in the home, the greatest influence is the parent.
Yeah.
And so to educate them in helping build this kind of culture of discovery and learning and passion, it has to come from the parent, which is why we focus there instead of on the student.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that idea, that just throwing that out there as like, just to say, oh, really? How does that work? That to have that language of, well, let's find out. Let's figure this out. Let's do this together and find out what's going on. I listened to this one homeschool conference in Virginia, and this lady named Marilyn Boyer, and she has really interesting philosophies about like her home culture, because when her kids grew up, somebody asked them like what was so successful in their home. She had 14 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And this older son said, well, Mom always delighted in us. And so she started to dive into the scriptures and stuff about like, what does that mean to delight? And, she would do stuff like when their kids would be like excited about an anthill or something. She'd be like, really? And like, she'd show me, and she'd get excited. And so it's like, I think that, being interested and allowing kids to be curious, it really does speak to that, I think, of like
Absolutely.
delighting in them and like, really? Let's figure that out. I want to find out. Let's delight in learning together and delight in sparking that curiosity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So how is the Math Inspirations, why was it more successful in a homeschool setting than, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but I think going more into it, like, how could we help even non-homeschool parents to like understand this discovery type of attitude and curiosity and stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, because the parent is the main influencer in the home, in my mind, it doesn't really matter if a kid is in school or not in school. This idea of them being the authority, so the student being the one in control of their own learning, where they're curious and they're diving into it more, and they aren't accepting just what someone else is telling them, but they're trying to figure out why, because they need to know if it's true or not. They need to discover that truth. That idea can happen no matter where your school is, where your child is actually learning, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's in the home or whether it's outside of the home. And that has to be encouraged by the parent, because it's more than just doing it for an hour a day or 2 hours a day. They have to be constantly, well, why does that work? Why do you think it works? Can you show me how that works? Because I really want to know. And that kind of mentality, the parent doing that for the child and showing them that they expect them to know that of themselves, encourages the child. Exactly, that there's way more to it.
Tell me what you did to get that.
Yeah. In fact, the answers aren't important at all, right? What 2 + 4 is not important. But the process to getting to that and to discovering and to learning about that And then having the confidence in themselves to say, yeah, it totally is this. And I know that it's 6 because of this and this and this. So I know it of myself. I know that it's 6. And that gives the student pride in their own achievements, which is great. It also gives them faith in themselves, which is really important, because as a parent, in fact, we've thought a lot about this as it relates to our family culture, because we realize as parents, we want our children to become their best selves, kind of like our overarching goal. And we don't want them to become our best selves. Like, I don't want my daughter to be the best me that she can be. I want her to be the best she, right? Best Ellie that she can be.
But if they're just regurgitating everything that we tell them, they're not necessarily developing their authentic selves.
Yeah. Because if I'm telling her what to do, then she's just being me. And she has uniqueness in her that I cannot tell her to get out. Like, I only can give her opportunities for her to build that and to grow that. And so I'm often surprised by what she will come up with and what she thinks and what she does, because it's unique to her. And as a parent, that's so wonderful to see. It's so cool to see her developing her own unique thinking and her own unique skills, because that's what I want. I want her to be herself. So I can't tell her what to do. I can't kind of force her into my
tempting as a parent.
Oh, yeah.
So tempting, to
it's
be
not
like,
efficient.
No, do this. Yeah.
It's not efficient to let them do it their own way at all.
You have to have a lot of patience as a parent to sit and wait on them to, like, figure it out, or or even make mistakes.
Yeah.
To do it the wrong way and be like, is that right? So what would you say then if they're doing something wrong that you can see that they're making maybe a wrong choice? Like, what can you do?
Well, what's great about life and about math in particular is that things are built on truths. There are certain truths that are just true. And so when they are trying to prove something that's not based on truth, they will see that error, because there are certain truths that they have to go back to, that when they go, oh, you're right, that didn't work, because it's not, doesn't meet this truth that I know is true. And so when they see that, then they themselves are correcting and saying, oh, no, this isn't right, because it has to be this, which again is giving them the confidence that, I can figure this out myself. Like, I can do this myself, and I can learn myself, and I can check myself to make sure that I'm correct. And I don't need mom telling me if I'm right or wrong, because a lot of times we rely on someone, our generation even kind of feels like, so someone tell me I'm doing this right. Someone telling me I'm parenting correctly. Someone telling me, someone tell me if I'm not, doing it right or not. And it's so powerful if you can say, no, these are the truths. And I know I'm going through these truths, and it's very like religious, very gospel based too, because it's like, you know what, there are truths in my life that I can say this action is aligned with my truths, and so I know that it's going to be okay. And that's what I want my kids to be like. I have these inner truths, and what I'm doing I know aligns with these inner truths, so I'm going to be okay.
I love that. Yeah. Just before we got on our call, I was looking at Facebook, and a friend of mine posted this article from The Economist. And it's so interesting because you're talking about the self-esteem and the confidence. And it says that the American education system turns out good swimmers and confident public speakers, but for subjects like math and science, standards are much lower than in other developed countries. And the title of the article is American Schools Value Self-Esteem Over Academic Achievement. But that tells me, though, that, like, what you're saying is, if you did value the academic achievement in the right ways, you are going to nourish their self-esteem and their self-worth, and it comes from them being able to explore who they really are and that they are creating the information, like discovering it inside, for themselves.
Yeah, because I often think this idea of self-esteem is just, well, I'm great and I'm good and I am comfortable in who I am. And confidence is I can do great things. It's like I believe in not just who I am, but who I can become, and that I can get there if I want to get there. And so I think self-confidence is a lot more to do with kind of action, like what can I become in the future? And self-esteem is more who I am now. Yeah. And it's great that we're building self-esteem. I think that's important because that's kind of how that confidence can start. It's like, okay, I'm smart. So if I'm smart, I should be able to have the skills to do these things.
But there's a difference between that, if you've ever read the growth mindset, Carol Dweck, there's a difference between the fixed and versus the growth mindset. You have to have that attitude that I can do these things or I can develop these things. And I think that that's a deeper level of self-esteem and a deeper level of confidence than just, I'm smart. No, I'm smart. And then try and go the rest of your life trying to defend that I'm smart by doing the same things over and over again. And that's not going to get you anywhere.
Nope.
It's not going to give you that growth.
Yeah, because confidence, that kind of confidence that helps you kind of grow and move further can only be developed through experiences. Experiences where you struggled through something and it was hard, but you persevered and had an amazing outcome. Those kind of experiences, when they're repeated, so even a little child who does something wrong and fixes their mistake and feels that sense of, oh, I did it and I fixed it and something great happened. Like those experiences over and over and over are how they realize, okay, I can learn and do something great and it's going to be hard, but that doesn't mean I'm not smart, right? That's not going to defeat me because I know that I can become greater if I struggle through this.
So it's as a parent not always jumping in and saving them from something, that's what's going to develop that confidence.
Because often, to do that. especially in math, I mean, I guess in other things as well, when parents jump in, it's almost like saying, I don't think you can do this.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do this, so I'm going to jump in and I'm going to save you because you're just not capable of this.
I don't want you to get embarrassed.
Exactly. And that sends the total wrong message because what you're saying is, no, you can't do it. And your journey isn't very important. And I'm just going to save you because I'm the one who knows. And it's done over and over and over again, especially in public school, especially in math.
The teacher is the authority. That they
exactly.
Don't challenge
and it's repeated and repeated, and so students get that ingrained in themselves that I need someone else to do this for me. And when I struggle, it's their responsibility to teach me because I'm not capable of it for myself. And
that accouountability.
That's kind of like it's just a terrible thing because it ingrains in students where that either they're really good but they don't feel like it was someone else's really good, or they did really bad, and then they're just like, oh, I just can't do this because even my teacher couldn't help me, right? So if my teacher couldn't even tell me what to do and I could get it, then I just can't do it.
Then their self-esteem starts to diminish. They don't believe in themselves anymore. That's heartbreaking.
They believe they're great people, but they're not great mathematicians.
Right.
Or so they believe. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, and so like in my family, anytime we have to jump in because of time, so like if my daughter's sweeping the floor and we have to leave and she's taking forever sweeping the floor, we make it very clear that we believe that she can sweep that floor really well. Like that we're jumping in just because we have to leave right now. I know you could do a really great job if we gave you more time, but we got to go to grandma's or like whatever it is. Because I never want her to think that I don't think she can. Because I know that she can. And so whenever I have to jump in because of time, and that's just a small thing, just to say, oh, I know you could totally do this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it real quick. Is that okay? Right?
I think that's important language because so many people are so busy.
Totally.
I mean, to sit down and say, tell me about this and that, or, how did you get to that? It's like, that takes time. But I mean, if you have the right language to just let your child know, I do care about this and I know you're capable.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I also think sometimes, at least myself as a parent, I get overly busy. where I realized, wow, I've said a lot that I think you can, but I'm going to do it. I've been saying that a lot lately, which means I probably need to slow down. And so there are times where I'm just like, I'm just going to slow down and cut something out and really just let them have these opportunities. Cause that's like, even if I say over and over again, I know you can, if they don't actually do it at some point, then they won't know they can.
Yeah.
And so we have to give them that opportunity to know that they can. Yeah,
true.
Exactly.
True. Well, I also, so I want to go and I want to talk to you about the math games and things that you incorporate into your program, because I really want to play more math games with my kids, but I'm like, I don't know any of these games, and I think maybe some of that goes into the parent training that you offer. But so what are some ways that we can incorporate more of these games in order to, to develop that culture of just thinking logically and, exploring the capacity that we have to just think and to incorporate numbers and patterns and things like that. So just starting from like little kids on up through even teenagers, like what kind of activities can you do as a family that will encourage that kind of thinking?
Yeah, I think games and math games are great. I think any game is great. And I actually like with my family to play a new game that none of us know how to play, where we have to sit down, we have to read the directions, we have to talk through what we think that means, because it's so good for our kids to see us not know things.
Yeah.
We're like, wow, I've never played this before. I don't know. What do you think this would mean? What do you think this would mean? Because they've got to also see that problem solving modeled out for them as well. Yeah. And so in our family, anytime we get a new game, we all sit down together and we kind of read through the instructions and we decide, we interpret some of the rules, and it might not be a right interpretation, but it's our family interpretation. So we stick with it. Because it doesn't really matter as long as, it's consistent between all of us.
Right.
And then we get going. And games are so fantastic because, one, they're fun. That's the whole goal of a game, is to be fun. And so kids are less intimidated by it because they know that it's a game and games are fun. Yeah. And so it allows their brains, like psychologically allows their brains to learn better, because when you are excited about something, when you're happy, the endorphins actually aid in the learning process. They allow things and connections to be made more quickly. Mm-hmm. So that's why we love games, and we always start with games with our kids and with our students, because it's just something that helps their brain lighten and get excited and to grow. And so games like Mastermind is one of our favorites. You ever seen Mastermind? The little colored pegs.
There's a junior one too. That's what my kids play.
Yeah, we love that game. It's a great, because especially when I'm playing games with my kids, we talk about why they're doing what they're doing. So it's not just random guessing, which Mastermind can tend to, where it's like, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. When you actually stop and say, well, why are you making that guess? I don't know. And you actually make them think about it. They go, oh, I would guess pink because there weren't any pinks in this one. So then they can actually make a more educated guess. And sometimes it just takes you asking that question for them to realize it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they actually have really brilliant reasons for making the guesses that they make. And then it's a good way for them to communicate what they're doing, and for you to go, that's awesome. What a go. I love that way. Yeah. Keep going. Right. It might not be right, but keep going.
Yeah.
So that's a really fun one. Right now my 5-year-old and I are playing a lot of Sorry. Okay. With my 3-year-old as well, because that just a little counting, and each peg goes with a certain number, right? Each square has a certain number. Is such a valuable thing for her to move. Anyway, it's a beginning counting and learning process. Okay. And then she also starts, like when she plays, there's the 10, you either move 10 or go backwards 1. And so I'm starting to see her actually strategically move a piece backwards 1 and forward 10 to get closer to her goal. Like, it's so fun to see. If you play a game enough, then they can really start making strategy. where they go, oh no, I think this would actually make a better move, instead of just doing whatever's quickest and easiest for them. And so that repetitive gameplay is really good as well. And so with her, we're seeing a lot of cool things. War is another favorite. So if you have students who are struggling with their math facts, we love war because it's fast repetition. So we'll like have them flip over 2 cards and they have to multiply. And then whoever has the largest product wins. So I flip over 2, flip over 2, and they multiply. And that's great because you're getting a lot of repetition in, but it's also in game setting, so it's not just, a worksheet where they have to crunch numbers. But when we play, if they don't know what 6 times 7 is, then I have them figure it out.
Nice.
So I never actually tell them the answer. But sometimes it's cool because if they have 6 times 7 and I have 7 times 7, they don't actually have to know what 6 times 7 is to know I have more than they do. I have 7 groups of 7 and they only have 6 groups of 7. And so obviously I have more than they do. So that's kind of fun too, because then they can estimate without getting bogged down by the procedure, which is actually a detriment later on if they're getting bogged down by a procedure and forget to think. So thinking happening is a great thing. And it keeps it, I don't know, it keeps the numbers not abstract but concrete.
Okay. That's awesome. I like that, what you said about sitting down and allowing your kids to see that process of you learning, because I never thought about that before, because whenever the kids want to play a new game, I'm like, I don't know how to play that game. And so I kind of like shy away from it, but that makes so much sense to be like, sure, let's sit down together and figure this out, because I don't really know.
It's actually a really great thing for them to figure out the game too.
I think that's good practice as a parent.
With older kids?
To just, as a parent, to like just sit down and be like, we're going to figure this out, and just the game.
Totally.
And then to translate that over to, well, you're curious about something? Okay, let's figure this out.
Totally.
Let's find out.
Yeah, and make that part of your culture is we just figure things out. That's what we do together. Yeah. It's also fun if you have older kids who can read to have them figure it out. So you figure out the game and then you teach it to me. So you come and you're like, all right, teach me about this game. And then you can help them kind of where they might not have been sure about things. You can clarify it for them and kind of help them refine their thinking as well. So yeah, don't be afraid of unknown games.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how does some of that all translate to like if somebody's homeschooling and they have to have a certain level that their kids are learning or something that they have to report to the state or something, like how does that work for homeschool families?
Yeah, so most of what I've heard is based on improvement, but that might not always be the case depending on if you're going through a charter school or something. But pretty much anything they're learning, as long as they are discovering it themselves. So, for example, if they have to learn how to multiply larger numbers, then instead of telling them what to do, if you know that's your end goal that you have to get to, instead of telling them what to do, just have them figure it out. Say, what do you think you would do? Because even starting there, where they're having to think about it, instead of telling them what to do, you're saying, I think you could figure this one out. I think you can figure this one out. So what do you think we would do? And starting there and allowing them time to really figure it out and to think about it. Because really, if you allow that time at the beginning of the process for them to think it through, use manipulatives, draw pictures, whatever they need to do to figure it out, if you allow that time at the beginning, you need very little, if any, time at the end for review. And so a lot of times we think, well, we have to report on this at the end of the week, so I need to teach them really quick so they can practice. But if you take 4 days at the beginning to have them figure it out and discover it and really dig into it, then that last day, they know it. They've got it. They don't need that practice at the end because they know how to figure it out. They know how to do it. And so on any kind of review, they'll figure it out because they already figured it out once. So there's going to be no problem figuring it out again. We have a lot of students that take the ACT. The ACT tests for problem solving, So a lot of times in the ACT, they give students problems they've never seen before. Now, if you are always told what to do and you see a problem that you've never seen before, it's very intimidating because you don't know how to handle that.
Yeah.
But if you're get used to being asked the question, what do you think we should do with this problem? I know you don't know, but let's think of some answers, think of some ideas. Then when you come to a problem on the ACT that you've never seen before, you go, all right, well, what would I do here? Oh, maybe this. I'm going to try that. Okay, this makes sense. Yes, this is the answer. And it's amazing that they really do a lot better because they're not fazed by it. Anyway, they can figure it out. They have no issue.
They might even feel like the challenge is inspiring, right? Like a lot of, especially if they have that growth mindset where they think, this is a challenge. I'm going to tackle this, and learn something new. That's awesome. So I really like this, the overarching message of like growing kids' confidence. Like it's really, when you put it up into their hands to say, look, I'm not going to tell you that there's a right and wrong way to do this. I want you to figure out what the right way is, and then, and ultimately that truth will shine through as they work through it. And then as a parent, that's, making that part of your home culture, that the truth, that the ultimate truth, like find the ultimate truth, or like, and to be curious, to figure things out together, like that would be a huge thing for a lot of people, I think, to if they incorporated that attitude into their culture, like to delight in their kids and to be like just curious together. I mean, because I think too, sometimes parents, we think, well, I'm supposed to know everything, right?
Yeah.
But no,
Not at all.
And it's almost like, well, if I show weakness, then my kids are gonna take over. No,
totally.
But I think that if kids can come to us with the questions, and then we say, let's figure it out together, then, I mean, kids go through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And if they know that they can trust their parents not to be like, well, I know the answer, then maybe they'll come to their parents more often to say, look, I'm struggling with something and I want to figure it out with you.
Yeah.
To like humbly as a parent just be like, all right, let's figure that out.
Yeah.
And it could play math or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's power in parenting too when your child is misbehaving or when there's a problem with them and you say, you know what, I've noticed this and I think it's an issue. Do you think it's an issue? What do you think we could do about that? How do you think how could I help you change this behavior? What could we do about that? Yeah. Because then you're saying, you know what, this is you and this is your behavior and you're responsible for your behavior, but I want to help you figure out how we can change this. Yeah. How can we?
Well, then inspire them to come up with, they can come up with ideas. I mean, there's that, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. Have you read that book?
I've heard of it.
It's a really good book because it gives the parents like ideas for how to talk to the kids so that they will come up with the ideas. That's awesome. It's like, I noticed that there's this problem. Let's make a list of ways we can solve this problem, you know? And so that would totally apply to this idea of discovering like truths and figuring it out. Like, let's come up with ideas together and we'll cross off the ones that seem kind of silly. And parents like come up with silly ideas too,
Yeah, totally.
And if kids come up with silly ideas, be like, okay, that's not a bad idea. It's just another idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah, I love that. Because the more we can get them used to the process of brainstorming and thinking things through and thinking logically and drawing conclusions from those truths that they know based on that logic and problem solving, then when they get to problems in life when we're not around, because really that's the goal, right? As a parent, you want them to succeed when you're not around.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we need to give them plenty of experiences so that when they do reach that when you're not around, they go, all right, I know exactly how I'm going to handle this. I'm going to make a little list. I'm going to figure it out. I know these things are true, and so I'm going to make sure that my conclusion aligns with that, and I'm going to trust in myself to know that it's the right thing.
That's awesome. That's so crucial. That inner resilience, that inner strength and self-efficacy. I think that's something that's really, it's like you were saying, looking outside. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right?
Yeah.
Come back. You got to figure that out.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Emily. This has been
You're welcome.
That time went really fast.
Yeah.
So, I just really quickly just tell us about your website, where people can find you and what you're, get in touch with you and what you're doing.
Yeah. So our website is mathinspirations.com, and we have a course for parents. It's a 10-week course where we help parents implement this idea of discovery and of allowing their students to struggle and to think and to figure things out on their own to really gain that self-confidence. We talk about how to really apply that, especially in terms of math, because math is one of those areas where it's easy to help your kids think and grow in English or literature, right, where it's kind of already a little abstract. And but in math, it always seems like, oh, don't I need to tell them what to do? And so we help parents learn that you don't need to, and these are ways to help them learn and discover. And we also have a curriculum that goes with it that parents can follow that is really just provides the students with great opportunities to discover and to learn for themselves. So that's mathinspirations.com.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Emily.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you go check out Math Inspirations if you're interested in helping your child learn more about how to do the discovery method of math. Emily is an inspiration, and I love her work. Thank you so much for listening. Please rate, subscribe, comment, share, listen on Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, or on my website at homeandfamilyculture.com. And you can also find me on Facebook at the Home and Family Culture Podcast. Thank you so much.